Hey there, friends, it's Laurie. I'm so happy you stopped by because today I'm making 3 spring and Easter DIYs. I made a frazzled Easter bunny, a pretty spring bird pedestal, and a floral butterfly wreath. For all of my DIYs, to help keep the cost down, I used mostly Dollar Tree and Temu supplies. As always, I hope you have fun crafting with me, so let's get busy. To make my frazzled bunny, I'm starting by recycling an acrylic paint bottle. It's 16 ounces and made of plastic. It stands 6.5 inches tall and 3 inches wide. The bottle is old and the paint has dried out inside. You can always use an empty vitamin water or Gatorade bottle or even a Pringles can. So that it won't tip over, I need to give it some weight. You can pretty much add anything. I'm using some play sand. I used a funnel and added it into the bottle. There's bright lettering on the bottle and I don't want it to show through, so I'm using some white acrylic paint and I'm giving it a complete coat. It did a great job, and now that it's dry, nothing is showing through. I'm making my bunny out of faux white fur, and I picked mine up at Temu. It measures 20 by 33 inches, and it cost me $9.11. But their prices are subject to change. The size of your container, that will determine the cut size of the fur. I rolled my bottle on the fur, giving myself an extra inch on the bottom and 2 extra inches on the top. This is the cut piece of fur and it's heading in the correct direction, but I'm turning it over and attaching my bottle so the fur is running upside down. This way, when I comb out the bunny, it'll give it that frazzled look. I added on some hot glue, attaching one side of the fur and making sure to give myself that 1-inch overhang on the bottom. I then added some to the other side and attached both pieces together. I then added some hot glue onto the bottom and attached the 1-inch overhang. I'm adding on some ears and I'm using an Easter bunny headband from the Dollar Tree. I first cut both ears away from the headband. I then removed the plastic pieces that were inside. I want to be able to bend them, so I'm using some of these bendable hair rollers from the Dollar Tree. If you can't find them, you can always use some wire or some pipe cleaners. I added some hot glue inside the bunny ear and tucked one up inside. I did this for both of the ears, and the pink will show through the fur, so it gives the ears a realistic appearance. As you can see, once they're attached, you can bend the ear in different directions. I'm using the same white faux fur to cover both of the ears. I laid one of the ears down on the fur and cut a piece wide enough to cover it and allowed about 3 extra inches on the top. I then cut a matching piece for the other ear. Now, just like the bunny's body, I'm attaching the ears onto the fur heading in the opposite direction. So when you're brushing the fur out, it will give it that frazzled effect. Now that they're done, you can always leave the ears as is, but I'm adding some hot glue to the ends and folding them over, giving them a bit of a point. Now that I'm done, I'm attaching them to the bunny on the inside top of the cap. I added in a generous amount of hot glue and then placed in one of the ears. This is where the 2 extra inches of fur on the top comes into play. I pressed that against the front of the ear, added a bit of hot glue onto the back, and pressed that fur against the ear, and this helps hold the ear in place. When I was done, I then followed the same instructions for the bunny's other ear. I'm adding a face onto my bunny, and I'm starting first with the whiskers. I'm folding an 18-inch piece of floral wire in half, cutting it, and then folding the 2 pieces in half and cutting those as well. I'm making 4 whiskers. You can always make more, and now that I have them cut, I'm going to wrap them around a pencil. After placing one end down, I wrapped the wire tightly around the pencil and then slid it off. I followed the same instructions for all 4, and because my floral wire is green, I used some of my golden brown acrylic paint and I gave them a coat. I'm adding them onto the bunny by first finding their placement. I made sure to leave enough room for a little bit of the bunny's forehead and the 2 eyes. I placed 2 on one side and 2 on the other, making sure they were directly across from each other. I then hot glued all 4 of them in place. For the bunny's nose, I'm using a 1-inch wooden knob. It's basically a large bead, and I had this on hand. I used some pink acrylic paint and gave it a coat. Now that it's dry, I'm using my hot glue gun and attaching it over the whiskers. For the bunny's eyes, I'm using 2 black beads from this Dollar Tree bead decor. I snipped 2 of the black ones off, and I'll hang on to the rest. I'm sure I'll use them in future projects. I attached the black bead eyes just above the bunny's nose. When I was done, I then used a comb and brushed through the fur, giving it that classic frazzled bunny look. It is a little difficult to see at this angle, but the pink in the bunny ears are showing through. I placed some blush on the end of a cotton swab and then added a little bit of color on each side of the bunny's face. I'm adding some arms onto my bunny, and for this size bottle, I'm using a 3.5 by 10-inch piece of fur. I folded it over, added a line of hot glue down the center, and then folded over one side. I then added another line of hot glue and folded over the other side. To make it look like the bunny's paws are pressed together, I'm using a white tie wrap, but you can always tie it off with a ribbon. I folded the arms in half, found the center point, and then wrapped the tie wrap around and twisted it tightly on the back. I'm attaching the arms onto my bunny, first centering the paws under the nose and making it low enough that I can place something in the bunny's arms. I then hot glued both ends onto the back. I'm making my bunny a bow using a 1.5-inch Easter ribbon. I already had this on hand. I decided what size I wanted to make it and then just made a simple bow. When I was done, I then cut the 2 ends off at an angle. I used my hot glue gun and attached the bow to the top of the bunny's head. To fill out my bunny's arms, I'm adding in 3 of the Dollar Tree sparkly eggs. I tucked all 3 of them in, and I'm not permanently attaching them because I might trade them out later for some carrots or spring flowers. To finish up, what's a bunny without a little tail? I'm using 2 regular cotton balls and hot gluing them together. I then hot glued the tail onto the bunny. I finished up by giving him a quick combing, And now that I'm done, this cute frazzled bunny is ready for Easter. Today, I'm participating in my monthly friend collab, and it's hosted by my sweet friend Liana from Liana DIY. This month, our hosts are Jackie from Crafting in Mimi's World and Tammy from Happiness Created. All three of these ladies have amazing DIY channels, and you can check them out along with my other crafty friends by clicking on the playlist. I'll have it linked below in my description. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking on that little red subscribe button below, leaving me a thumbs up. And I know I say this all the time, but to all my returning friends, I'm always so happy to see you, and I can't wait to chat with everyone down below in the comments. To make the pedestal for my bird, I'm starting with one of the Dollar Tree black candle holders. It has some weight to it, and it does feel like a thick plastic. I have this pretty pink spray paint already on hand, and I'm giving mine a complete coat. Now that it's dry, I'm going to set it aside and make the top. I found this 5-inch wooden circle at the Dollar Tree, and I'm using this as the top. Most of it won't show. You could always leave it natural, but I'm painting mine with some white acrylic paint. Now that I'm done, I'm attaching the two pieces together. To make the base, I'm turning my candle holder over, so now the top is the bottom, and I did notice there was a little imperfection, so this is a great way to hide it. I first added some E6000 onto the top of the base, then placed down my wooden circle, making sure to center it. When I was done, I did let it set up for a couple of hours. I'm adding on some small flowers, and I have bags of these left over, just remnants from past projects. I have an assortment of different colors, and this is so easy to make. All you'll need is your glue gun. I added some hot glue onto the side of the circle, and then began adding on my assortment of flowers. I had no pre-planned placement for any of the flowers. The only thing that I did do was make sure when I was attaching them that they were all heading in the same direction. Now that I've completed the outside, I'm adding more flowers onto the top. I'm making sure they all head in the same direction, keeping with a circular pattern. With all the flowers in place, I'm adding on some small pieces of greenery that I had on hand. If you don't have any or you can't find any, you can always cut the leaves that come with the silk flowers into small pieces, and those will work just as well. Once again, I'm using my hot glue gun, and I'm attaching the leaves in between the flowers and anywhere that I might see a little bit of an opening. Now that I'm done, this is the easiest part of this whole DIY. I'm using this cute pink porcelain bird that I found at the Dollar Tree. You can use just about anything, a bunny, a squirrel, or even an Easter egg, anything that will fit inside the circle. Now all I need to do is place the bird in the center of the flowers. I chose to not permanently attach it in case I want to change it out for something different. This is so easy and inexpensive to make, and it's the perfect addition to my spring decor. To make my floral butterfly wreath, I'm starting with one of the 14-inch wire wreath forms from the Dollar Tree. I need something to attach my flowers to, so I'm using some white ribbon that I had on hand. I'm adding some hot glue onto the wreath form and attaching one end of the ribbon. I added on some hot glue here and there and wrapped the ribbon tightly around. You'll only end up seeing this on the bottom, so you can pretty much use any type of ribbon or burlap, something that will hold the hot glue. I'm using 2 pieces of ribbon, and after my first one was attached, I then started with the second. With the wreath form completely wrapped, it's now time to add on my base flowers. I'm using 6 bunches of these pretty light purple flowers from the Dollar Tree. I removed the flowers from the main stem along with the leaves. They have a little plastic holder. I removed that as well, and then slipped it back onto the flower. With all my flowers ready, I'm using my hot glue gun to attach them. I added a generous amount of hot glue onto the form and then pressed down the flower. I held it in place for a couple of seconds, then added hot glue onto the other side and attached a flower right next to it. I picked the light purple flowers for my wreath, but you can always change up the colors so they fit your home decor style. I continued adding on the hot glue and the flowers until the wreath was complete. I want to add more greenery onto my wreath, and I found these 2 ivy garlands at the Dollar Tree. I cut each of the leaves away from the main stem. To attach them, I'm placing some hot glue on the stem and then attaching them in between the flowers here and there. If you can't find the ivy and you want to use something else, you can always substitute a different greenery. You can always use leftover leaves from silk flower stems, and those will work just as well. I have all of the ivy attached, and if you're looking for a simple spring wreath, I think this is so pretty and you can always hang it as is. I found this pretty light pink Gerber daisy bunch at the Dollar Tree, and it comes with 6 flowers. I pulled all 6 of them off of their stems. Before I permanently attach them, I'm going to evenly space them around the wreath. This way, if I'm not happy with their placement, I can always reposition them. All the flowers look good, so I'm using my hot glue gun to attach them. My next flower is the white petunia. I found this bunch at the Dollar Tree and it comes with 6 flowers. I always double check because sometimes they come with 5 and that will force you to end up buying 2 bunches. And just like the daisies, I removed all of them from their stems. I know exactly where these are going and I'm hot gluing one in between each of the daisies. I added some to the back of each and then tucked them down into the purple flowers. I'm now adding on some smaller flowers and I found these really pretty two-tone purple wildflowers at the Dollar Tree. They do come 6 to a bunch, but I'm doubling up, so I bought 2 of them. Just like the others, I'm pulling them away from the stems. Before I permanently attach them, I'm going to find their placement. I'm placing one on the outside of the petunia and then the other I'm placing on the inside of the daisy. And then I continue the same pattern as I'm working my way around the wreath. Once I had them all in place, I then used my glue gun to attach them. The last flower accent that I'm adding onto my wreath is a bunch of these Dollar Tree white wildflowers. And just like the others, I made sure there are 6 of them. I'm tucking one of these on the outside of each of the pink daisies. I'm then hot gluing each of them into place. I've had a bunch of people message me and ask, please make a wreath that doesn't have a bow. You can always add one on, but this is definitely a wreath where you will not miss the bow. For the final accent on my wreath, I'm using 13 butterflies. I picked these up from Temu. I ordered 30 and they cost me $3.48. They come in assorted colors on a heavy wire. I picked the ones that I thought would complement my wreath and then I just snipped them free from the wire. I randomly added them onto the flowers, letting them fly in different directions. And once I had them all in place, I then used my hot glue gun to secure them. This was so easy and inexpensive to make, and I can't wait to welcome spring when I hang this on my front door. Here we are at the end of the video, and I really hope you had fun crafting with me. Be sure to check out my friends on the playlist that's linked below in my description. And if you're new to my channel and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to come back and hang out with her again, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below. Be sure to leave me a comment so I can say hello, and I wish you all a safe and an amazing day, and until next time, bye everybody!